All right, Akiva, you ready?
I am ready.
Akiva's here. Hopefully more people will start to sign on. Akiva's our speaker. We can hear you. Let me make you one of the co-hosts. I can find you here. And Maurice is already a co-host. So you can share your screen if you need to.
I'm not going to be sharing my screen, but I will
Well,
be sharing
now
my voice.
that's fine. Well, now you're a co-host voice.
Okay, great.
All
Do
right,
you
so
want?
let me just give the intro you, and as you know, Bev, do you want to talk about what programs
Um,
are coming up again? Do you want to just repeat what you said?
okay, just 1 second. I okay. I'm the program manager for Feed the Soldiers, Bev Cohen, and we have three programs in 2026. The next one is February 20 to 28. We have enough volunteers to make it go, but we have a couple more rooms on the Army base. So if anyone is interested, that is available. Our spring program is full. I have a waiting list for that. And October is open now, and we're starting to receive applications. We can only take 14 volunteers because that's all the space we have on the base. But if you are interested, check out our website and please sign up. Remember, your deposit is fully refundable, so you don't risk anything if you put in a deposit and reserve your place. If you have to change your mind, it's not a problem. We usually have a waiting list for these programs.
Great.
Beth, could you send me an application for the October one?
Hey, how you doing?
I
Okay,
would
it's
just say,
Rochelle. Is that Rochelle?
Yeah.
It's on
Rochelle.
the website. There's a
Oh,
new application. Go to the Feed the Soldiers page. There's a new application and
all right. So
my, yeah.
sorry. And I would say if you're interested, go to our website, vfi-usa.org, and you can look at the variety of programs we offer. It'll give you everything under the moon in terms of your answering any of your questions about the programs, the application link, who to contact. So I would just encourage anyone who's interested in volunteering for Israel at this point to go on our website. Now, just to introduce Akiva, who's been here. Akiva, how many times is this now? Like five?
Something like
Six,
that. Something like
seven.
that.
One of our favorite speakers. Akiva moved to Israel from New York in 2004 and has been working in the field of Jewish and Israel education for over 25 years. In 2020, he founded At Israel to share his love and passion for Israel with students, schools, and communities around the world through his online classes, courses, and virtual tours of Israel. In 2017, Akiva published a book, Becoming Israeli, which is a compilation of essays that gives an inside look at the unique experience of making Aliyah and the journey of acclimating to life in Israel. Akiva lives in Pardes Chana with his wife Tamar and their 4 children. So welcome, Akiva.
Correct. Thank you. Okay, should I pin myself? Is that okay?
I
Oh,
got
you
it.
did it. Great.
Yep.
Perfect. Wonderful. Hello, everybody. Shalom to everybody. Hope you're doing well. I'm actually in New York right now, visiting my family for a week. So this is the first time that I'm sharing here from this perspective in this time zone. But nice to see everybody here, and thanks for joining. Obviously, a big topic, an important topic, an emotional topic brings up lots of thoughts and feelings, right? These past 2.5 years have been very intense and very unique and unprecedented and filled with every emotion in the book. As my wife often said at the beginning of the war, after October 7th, 2023, a phrase that I started to use as well as when people would ask how you doing or how you feeling, she would say, I'm feeling all the feelings, right? I'm feeling them all. And that's exactly what specifically the first number of months of the war was like for many people. It's already been over 2 years, but still we're in it. Even with the ceasefire and even with the pause in fighting, it's not over. But obviously a lot has happened, and there's certain parts of the story that are quote unquote over. But we're still in it's like an interesting kind of space that we're in, that we're reflecting, we're looking back, but also wondering what's going to be next. Like, where's this headed? What's going on? What's going to be? as anyone who just, reads Israeli news, but also, specifically, I would say, just for me and my perspective, living in Israel, there's a lot of question marks. What's going to be with Gaza? What's going to be in Gaza? What's going to be with Hezbollah, northern Israel? I can jump in my car and drive to the Gaza border in an hour. I can jump in my car and drive to the border with Lebanon in like about an hour, and we know that there's still hostile entities on these borders, and there's Iran. There's so much still going on, and many still big question marks as to where this is going, what's going to be. But we still can reflect on what's happened up until now, and that's what we're going to do for the next, a number of minutes that we have together. I'll share for a certain amount, and then happy to take any comments, thoughts, questions, reflections that people have. All right. As we look back on this time and specifically the theme and focus of this class and sharing lecture is about how did Israel respond? How did Israel change? How did Israel grow and transform as a result of what took place on October 7th? And how did it take that darkness, that deep, thick, unprecedented darkness that descended on Israel and the Jewish people on October 7th and transform it into something different, into something better? That's what we're going to be talking about. I do just want to say, just because Alana mentioned my first book, Becoming Israeli, that I published in 2017. I can't believe it's over 8 years, I'm sorry, that the book came out. Since then, many people have been telling me, you have to put out another book, you have to put out another edition, more stories, this and that. And then I've thought, I'm like, yeah, I'll get to it. I want to do it one day. I never had the push to put out another edition. Thank God I feel really good about the book and like really powerful, emotional stories. Stories that make you cry, stories that make you laugh. But just recently, very, very recently, I started thinking, and people started sharing with me, like, you should put out another book, like the next follow-up edition of Becoming Israeli, specifically for people who made Aliyah, people who became Israeli, people who moved to Israel after October 7th, right? And or because of October 7th. That, right, for me was very meaningful and very powerful. Like, that's the kind of book that I want to put out next. And so I started working on that the last few weeks, like literally just like, fresh on my plate. And I've already gotten a number of submissions from people who made Aliyah after October 7th and or due to October 7th. And I'm already like experiencing that same level, though different, of emotion, right? Literally like reading some of these pieces and like tearing up, just the emotion that comes out in these stories. And there's many stories like that out there. So just wanted to kind of, piece all those different pieces together. But I think to really understand what has happened in Israel since October 7th, right, and how Israel has grown, has changed, has transformed, we need to understand what happened before October 7th, 2023, right? It might be a little uncomfortable for people to hear, and it's maybe a little uncomfortable to talk about, but Israel was in a very hard place for like a good solid year leading up to October 7th. Okay? It's easy to forget. Maybe we did forget. Maybe we weren't even so aware of it. But it was a hard year. I made Aliyah in 2004, and 2022 into 2023 was probably the hardest year that I've ever witnessed in Israel leading up to October 7th. What was going on? There was so much inner fighting. There was so much divisiveness. There was so many rifts. Now you might think that, well, that's Israel. Like Israelis like to fight about everything. It was a whole nother level. The political divides, the religious divides, fighting on the streets, the demonstrations, the two sides, me against you, you against me. You're not like me, I'm not like you. It was tangible, right? To the point where I know I'm one of many people who felt like if I went somewhere, and I'm sure all kinds of people felt this, not just someone like me or looks like me, like lots of people felt like if I go into a certain kind of place, whether it's a store or a community or an area with certain kinds of people, I don't know. How are they going to look at me? What are they going to say about me? Are they going to confront me? That's where it got to. It felt like you were like divided into camps, whether you liked it or not. Oftentimes just based on your appearance. So it was a very, very heavy year. There's like, in addition to all the protests and demonstrations, like all the time, weekly, there were like banners everywhere and signs everywhere. against this and against that. It was such intense energy. And I remember talking to people, and I remember just thinking, to myself, like, how are we ever going to get over this? Literally, we are so divided, we are so broken. How are we ever going to get over this? I remember talking to people like, it's going to take years. If I don't even know what, we didn't know what. It's going to take years to move beyond the place that we're in right now. And what's the method that's going to bring us there? We have no idea. Can't even imagine. But whatever it's going to be, it's going to take a very long time because that's how low we sink as a people, as a nation. And then October 7th happened, right? October 7th happened. The shock, the darkness, everything, all the words that we can think of, right? We don't need to describe that day. We know. Whether you were here or not, it doesn't matter. For every Jew in the world, that day is probably the darkest day on your life's calendar, right? For your people. Then that day, right, takes place. And maybe like a few days before that, we're like, how are we ever going to get beyond this? It's going to take years of super intense kind of work. It literally, I'm not even exaggerating, it took hours. Hours for the nation to snap out of it. For the nation to realize, whoa, what just happened? What did we just do? How did we get so divided? How did we get so hateful towards each other? Just because we're different. And literally within hours, the whole nation, of course, is focused on the task. Oh my God, what just happened? Oh my God, what's happened? Oh my God, we're getting attacked. Oh my God, the worst attack Israel has ever faced in its history. Right? Everything that happened on October 7th. And everyone cares. Everyone is concerned. Everyone wants to help. Everyone wants to do something. It doesn't matter what side of the political divide you're on. It doesn't matter what your religious orientation. It didn't matter. Guys who were in the army, jumping into the uniforms and rushing and running and driving, to get to their bases, to get to their units, to protect the nation and the people. Didn't matter who, what. Didn't matter. I made Aliyah when I was 28 years old. Right, so I was too old for the army. I never went to the army. Right, something I feel like I missed out on. But it was just, not something that was part of my experience. Right, but my friends, right, who were born here, who were raised here, who went to the army and are my age and have done tons and tons of days of miluim, as we call it, of reserve duty. They say that all the time. They say you go into reserve duty, it's a different world. Nobody talks about politics. Nobody talks about religion, right? We're like one people, and you feel that unity. It's like prohibited to talk about those things that were dividing us before, and that do divide us. He said it's like an unbelievable, wonderful bubble to be in. They love it. Okay, that magnified so many times over. Right after October 7th. And the nation just went into mode. And every single one of us has our own story of where we were, what we were doing, how we found out, when we really found out. I remember I was in my community here in Pardes Chana in Israel. Simchat Torah, Shabbat, Simchat Torah. We were dancing with the Torah. I was on my way to synagogue that morning. I was a little late, so I was walking with my talit already, with my prayer book open. It was definitely after 8 o'clock in the morning already. I didn't know anything. And I look back at that morning, that morning I was sitting with a coffee, just enjoying my Shabbat morning, right? When these horrible things were happening in my country, I had no idea about, right? Just because, I'm so much Shabbat, I don't have things on that would have told me. I had my time in the morning all by myself. I was by myself. And it wasn't until I got into the street. And I remember at some point I saw these white streaks in the sky. I'm like, what's that? That looks really weird. Looks like the Iron Dome, but why would the Iron Dome be going off at this point? I didn't hear any booms. We live, far enough away from Gaza that we didn't hear any booms. But then a car pulls over. Never happened to me ever. And all the times I'm walking to the synagogue, never ever did a car stop to talk to me. This guy stops, rolls down your window. He's like, Shemata? He's like, did you hear? I'm like, no, what? He's like, Yesh milchama, Yesh milchama. There's a war, there's a war. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you didn't hear the terrorists invading our country. This was already at 8 in the morning, an hour and a half after the invasion started. I'm freaking out when I hear this. I'm like, oh my God, how many terrorists? How many terrorists came into the country? He's like, what we know right now, 50. Right? 50. 50 terrorists, and we're freaking out over 50 terrorists. right? Only later did we realize there was well over 5,000. Right, so I'm just talking about the timeline that any of us that even knew what was going on was, was a thing in and of itself. Anyway, once we know, right, without we don't need to retell the story of October 7th here. That's not our focus here. But I remember sitting, my own personal experience, right? That night, right, when I turned on my phone, and of course throughout the day we kept hearing things, but still, once I actually heard, I realized what we did here was like a tiny percentage of what was really going on. Once I came out of Shabbat and I turned on my phone, I literally just sat there. I didn't move for hours. And I felt like I didn't move for like 2 days, just taking in everything that was happening and just paralyzed by shock, paralyzed by utter shock and disbelief. And then I'm like, what am I doing? I'm like seeing all these videos of all these guys running into the army, running to the reserve duty, doing all these things. People like going out to the streets, like hand them water and food and clothing and all the things that they didn't bring from their house because they literally ran out of their house to like go protect the country and fight back the terrorists. I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm like sitting in my like comfy chair and like party's con in my house. Like, what am I doing? I realized I have to do something. And my story is just like one little nothingness of like everything that was going on. I'm just using it as an example that I'm sure over and over and over and over and over again, people were having this experience. If you weren't going into the army, you're like, what can I do? Right? If you were going into the army, you knew what you were doing. Like it wasn't even a thought. You were going. Right? But if you weren't going into the army, you're like, what could I possibly do? And that's when, like, literally, like the entire country that didn't go into the army, that didn't go into reserve duty, that didn't put on a uniform, went into insane volunteering mode. Insane. Like on a level unprecedented in this country's history. Right? Remember, this is the time that people couldn't come into the country for a long time. Eventually, there is that whole story and that whole chapter of this story, this amazing chapter of Jews from around the world, even non-Jews, wanted to come and volunteer, and they did in mass, and it's still happening. It's pretty amazing. Okay, but just within the country, within the borders, it was either like you're like fighting on the front lines, or you're supporting those that are fighting, or you're supporting the hundreds of thousands of Israelis that had to evacuate their homes in a second, both along the Gaza Strip border. Don't forget about the northern border with Hezbollah, who attacked Israel on October 8th, the second day of the war. They got involved. There are people now living in my community in Pardes Chana who moved to Pardes Chana because of the war, and they decided to stay. Right? Also, my kids had friends who came to live in Pardes Chana during the war. They became like really close friends with him, and then when they could, they left and went back. It's a whole other part of the story, right? So those of us who couldn't go, into the army, right, went into volunteering mode, and it was unbelievable, right? All the farmers, and I'm sure that you guys have heard a lot of this stuff. The farmers, the foreign workers, just like evacuated the country, left like in mass, leaving all these fields, all these farms, like without any workers. So Israelis started picking peppers and tomatoes and sweet potatoes. My wife and me and our kids would go out as much as we could and to go out to these farms. And again, we're just like one of many, many people were doing this. So one aspect of what happened after October 7th, how Israel transformed as a society, as how they changed or took this darkness and worked towards changing it, transforming it into light, is the spirit of volunteerism that took over this country. It became like second nature. It was like, of course, like, what are you doing? What are you doing today? What are you doing this week? How are you helping? Boxing food, boxing clothing, delivering, it didn't hit me. And I'm just using my own personal stories just because they're the most familiar to me, not to say that they're like, the greatest stories out there, right? There are way bigger and way better stories out there. But I remember, and I only realized this like some months later, how quickly after October 7th it was. But we had one of our friends who went into reserve duty on October 7th. I was in touch with him, say, hey, you guys need anything? Can we help in any way? And he said, well, we need all this stuff. So my wife and I like did a whole like fundraising campaign for them and like got like tons of stuff. We packed our car with food and supplies and all this stuff. And I got my older son to come with me and we drove down. And he was like stationed all the way near like the Egyptian border, right? He was like put there with his unit to like protect those communities there because they weren't sure what else might happen from Egypt or who knows what, right? It didn't hit me until later on when I looked back at our WhatsApp messages and I saw the date. It was like October 9th. It's like 2 days later. We're like driving down and we got a little delayed. So it was already dark as we were driving. And that's when my friend started texting me. He's like, Akiva, I'm not sure if you should come here at this point. I'm like, why not? He's like, there's still terrorists out there that, that might be like hiding in the darkness and we don't want to take any risks. Crazy. And literally just at that moment that he sent me that text, my wife calls me freaking out, right? Saying, I'm in the bomb shelter right now. There's rockets from Hezbollah. There's so much that was going on, right? And taking all of that, what did Israel do with that? So there's the volunteer aspect, absolutely, right? People just going to motion. And again, like you're like next to somebody, it doesn't matter who, maybe like 3 weeks ago, you guys were yelling at each other at some protest and some demonstration, fighting over something, politically, religiously. Now, like, who cares about what? People going into the army together, this guy's religious, this guy's not, this guy's right wing, this guy's left wing, and they're brothers in arms who are literally like next to each other fighting our enemies with the same heart, with the same passion. That, again, we can never take away the depths of darkness and evil that October 7th was. But what came from that was and has been such a healing. It'll never, ever erase, obviously, that brokenness, right? And the tragedy that was, and the 1,200 people approximately that were killed, that were taken, that were murdered on that day, and the hostages and their families and everything that they've gone through. But there has been a tremendous level of healing that has taken place ever since, and is still in process of taking place. Okay, so that's one aspect is the whole volunteerism thing. Another aspect is, I mean, when you think about, heroism in Judaism, our minds quickly go to like, the Hebrew Bible, the heroes of the Bible, all these amazing people who did amazing things. And yes, also in modern day Israeli history, we have these stories of these incredible people who like just put their everything into protecting the country. But the amount of heroes that we had on October 7th was like on a biblical level. Right? It reminded people, Jews around the world and Jews in Israel, that heroes are not just found in the pages of our ancient stories. They're happening now. We have people who are like living on like biblical levels of love for this nation and love for our people and willingness to do anything and everything, right, to save our people and to protect our people. And the number of stories that came out just from October 7th, I mean, there's many other stories that came out after. But just from October 7th, the number of stories that have come out of people doing incredible things, everyday people doing extraordinary things, right? Someone say that I'm breaking up for them. Am I coming through clear? Everything's okay? Okay, good. It must be your computer. Okay? There's something about that. First of all, that's just amazing in and of itself, right? But the impact that has on the society is so big. Right? When we hear stories of other people's bravery and courage and willingness to give it all for our people, that impacts us. That really changes us. Right? That influences us also to do what we can for our people. Right? Now I don't have to stand there with a gun. I don't even have a gun. Right? We don't just need a gun in our hands to like protect our people. We don't need to be in uniform to like do something good for our people. There's so many ways. Right? But just even hearing the stories literally has transformed. You guys might have seen this book that came out originally in Hebrew, right? Later in English, probably other languages as well. In Hebrew, it's called Yom Echad B'October, One Day in October. Just raise your hand. I can only see a few of you guys on the screen, but anyone know that book? It's been translated into English. It's a must read. You have to read it. I'm sure many of you guys have bought and read Eli Sharabi's book, right? This is on that level. Like you have to read it. One Day in October. It's 40 stories of heroism from 40 different situations, 40 different people, just on October 7th. This is, I think, the only book in my house that the entire family is reading. I mean, it's too intense to read the whole book, for us at least, from cover to cover. We read like one story at a time. I'm still reading it. Every single story is like, and of course, every story contains tragedy and death and sadness and sorrow. But every story also is a story of unbelievable bravery. Someone stepping up, people stepping up and just going beyond. And again, just knowing that happened. On that day, the very day that our enemies tried to defeat us once and for all forever, that's what they're always trying to do. Every single war that Israel has ever fought, from our enemy's perspective, right, was the war to end Israel. October 7th was the same thing, right? And yet even then, even on our worst day, even on our worst defeat, even then, the heroism that came out was unbelievable and so inspiring. Just to share a couple of stories, and there's literally dozens. The editors of this book is two people, right? Two people who put out this book. They said, we interviewed hundreds of people. We chose 40. We could put out literally books from now until like years and years from now. There's so many stories. Please know, they said, this is not the end all be all. This is just 40 that we selected. There are so many more. I just want to share a couple of the stories that either I read from that book or heard from other places. You might have heard there's this all-female tank crew. The first all-female tank crew in Israel's history. They weren't even ready for battle yet. They were still training. They're actually on the Egyptian border in their training. And when they heard what was happening, they're not done with their training. But they said, what are we going to do? Our people are getting attacked. And they got into their tank and they literally just drove to like the Gaza border area, to the communities, and did whatever they could. Look them up, read about them. They had hours and hours, probably like a day and a half worth of just endless moments and experiences and situations that they were in that they just saved lives. They were in a tank. They literally drove over terrorists on that day. They literally crushed terrorists to death with their tank, right? They went into situations where they just saved people, like out of nowhere, like in a miraculous way from these people's perspective, right? And this is, again, Israel's first all-female tank crew. From what I've read, it was the first ever all-female tank crew in active battle in the history of anything, which is amazing. I think it's connected to another story that I once heard. One of the times I went down to the Nova Memorial site, I saw a guy in an IDF uniform, and he was talking to a group that was there of Israelis. He was talking in Hebrew, and basically his story, he was saying that he lives in one of the communities here in the Gaza border area, and when they found out what was happening, he and his son put on their uniform and they got in the car and they were driving to wherever he wanted to go to help out, and they got stuck in a traffic jam. Right? You might have heard of these traffic jams, right? Because Hamas terrorists very strategically like cut off roads, blocked roads, caused traffic jams, and then just went down the road shooting at people. He was in one of these, and he saw the terrorists coming towards his car. He said, this is it. This car is in front of me. This car is behind me. There's terrorists coming down a few meters now from me. This is it. We're done. He and his son started saying Shema, thinking they're going to get killed any moment. Like a movie, out of nowhere, a tank comes, right? And literally just drives over the terrorists, saving him and countless other people. It might have been this female crew, I'm not sure, right? But just the stories that came out of that day, right? You probably have heard of this Ethiopian IDF soldier who ran like 9 miles nonstop from his house, I think in Ofakim, if I'm not mistaken, right? Where he wasn't even assigned to a unit. He just finished officers training school, and he had not yet been reassigned. So he was home for a few days, like on a break, which happens in the army when October 7th happened. His uniform was still wet. He just cleaned it, and when he found out what was going on, he no one had a car around him. He was trying to get a ride. Nobody could give him a ride. He put on his uniform, wet still, got his gun, and started running nonstop for 9 miles until he got to the area of the Zikim beach. And just for the next like 36 hours did whatever people needed him to do to help out. Thank God he survived the war. And if you saw the video a long time ago of Netanyahu speaking in Congress, he was one of the guests that Netanyahu brought. One more story, and this is in this book that I mentioned, is of this man named Mickey, right, who lived in the kibbutz near Oz. And he was like a very, very high-skilled soldier in the IDF, and terrorists came into his house. And long story short, I'm not going to get into the whole thing. Terrorist after terrorist after terrorist came into his house. Eventually, he put his wife and daughter into the safe room, and he found himself like a corner near the safe room with his gun, with lots of cartridges, and literally just took out. He was in a certain part of the house where he could see anyone coming from anywhere, through the door, through the window, and he just took out every single terrorist, one after the next after the next. Eventually, they started firing like crazy, that he had to go into the safe room as well. And then they brought that like the Hamas commander of the attack on his kibbutz, and he came to right outside the door of the safe room with an RPG on his shoulder. And he threatened, if you don't come out, I'm gonna blow the safe room to pieces. You're all gonna die. And again, without going into all the details, this guy Mickey starts talking to him and starts negotiating with him, and convinces this guy to, okay, I'll come out. I'm going to surrender. I'm going to give myself up. Okay, but he can see through the door because there's bullet holes in the door that the guy still has RPG on his shoulder. So Mickey says to him, right? He said, "I'm coming out. I'm surrendering. Put your RPG down. Come on." And the guy agreed. He saw through one of these little holes in the door. When he started to put down the RPG from his shoulder, that split second, Mickey opened up the door, took out his gun, shot him, killed him on the spot. And that was it. No other terrorist came into the house. He saved himself, his wife, and his daughter until hours later when the IDF soldiers came and rescued them. Every single one of these stories is unbelievable. And these are just like a small drop in the bucket of the stories of heroism, of unbelievable bravery that came out of October 7th. And these are the kind of stories that have transformed Israeli society. Hearing these stories does something to us, right? And then there's the hostages. Of course, if there's anything, right, that was part of October 7th, part of this war, the hostages has such a huge impact on Israeli society. Everyone's heart broken, thinking about them every single day, praying for them every single day. I mean, my prayers were filled, as I'm sure yours were as well. Thinking about the hostages, their release, their names, any of the names I could remember. Maybe we picked one or two or three specific ones to keep praying for specifically, right? Knowing that everybody was praying for somebody. And then when someone get released, it was such a story within the story of the war, right? And that had a huge impact on Israeli society, unifying this society, bringing us together, right? Where before, as I mentioned before October 7th, for that whole year before, there was banners of like division all over the country. I remember it was the first thing that like blew my mind after October 7th. It was the first real visual that I saw that something is changing in Israel dramatically and radically. It went from like all these banners, all these signs of political divide, religious divide, anti this, against that, my side, your side. All those signs were gone. And now all you saw above the highways, on the bridges, along the side of the road, the only signs you saw literally were signs of unity. You know, Biachad ninatzech, together we will be victorious. Am Yisrael Chai, right? The nation of Israel lives. Everywhere you went. And of course, the hostages. Every single town, no matter if it's like Tel Aviv or like a little kibbutz, every town had, for the entire length of the war, right, some memorial, some place where they put up yellow chairs, yellow ribbons, signs, pictures of the hostages to not forget them. Everywhere, wherever you went around the country. And of course, if you've been here in the past couple of years, all the stickers, the memorial stickers, the stickers for the hostages, the stickers for those who were killed on October 7th, the stickers of soldiers who were killed in battle. Don't forget that in addition to the over 300 IDF soldiers who were killed on October 7th, approximately 600 more were killed in battle right after. This country went into like memorial, like big time remember, memorial, honor mode, and tapping into like our most important asset, our unity. Everywhere, everything, every sign, every banner, every person was talking about unity. That's it. It's as if we're like living in the biblical times. Because if you look at the book of Shoftim, of Judges, it's just like a cycle of the Jews, you know, disunifying, unifying, disunifying, unifying, getting attacked by enemies, coming back together, getting attacked by enemies, defeating enemies over and over again. Right? But the thing that brings them together and brings them victory is their unity, right? And that's what happened in these past couple of years. And of course, there's still one hostage left, right? It's not over, right? We still have one murdered hostage left in captivity, and we're still praying, waiting, and those who can do anything about it are working towards his release, right? So that his family could finally have a proper burial for him, a proper Jewish burial in the land of Israel for him, right? And have some kind of closure for him, right? But still, so much has happened, you know, since October 7th and up until today, things that have transformed Israeli society and will continue to. The last piece that I want to bring up, right, is connected also to the hostages, is once the hostages started getting released and they started speaking and sharing about their experiences, then we know there's two aspects of their sharing. There's the horrible, I can't even imagine how anyone went through what they went through, the physical torture, right? The inhumane conditions, the mental, psychological torture that they went through. Every single hostage right, went through something that, right, I mean, just to say the words we can't imagine, like there's nothing. Like there's no words we can even say. Of course we can't imagine. It's like the hell of the hell of the hell of the hell. The worst of the worst, like beyond. But in addition to them sharing, and they're still sharing, right? There's a hostages just very recently who just started to come out and share their experiences. Can't imagine the strength it takes just to share your experience, to go on, on live TV, speak in front of a crowd, right? Going into an interview with like on a news channel here in Israel to share your story. Not simple. But in addition to the pain and the darkness and the torture and the brutal captivity that they went through and that they share about, they share unbelievable things at the same time. They share incredible resilience and spiritual resistance and spiritual strength at the same time. They share about the depths of the darkness and the incredible light that they experienced / created for themselves in captivity. Now, just like there's so many examples of heroism on October 7th and since that we can only touch on a few, the same thing can be said about the hostages. But I want to read to you guys just a few, right? Just a few of the things. You guys, I'm sure, are familiar with Omer Shem Tov, right? Omer Shem Tov, hold on one second, where is this? Right? I'm sure you're familiar with Omer Shem Tov. Okay? Quoting him, he says like this: "In the darkness of Gaza, I found the greatest light." Right? He was like a secular Israeli kid, you know? Every night he said, I spoke to God. Not to ask for things, but to say, Abba, Father, how are you? Thank you for everything you've given me. How? And then he ends off by saying, if there's anything I miss from captivity, it's how close I felt to God. Huh? Like what? Did we read that correctly? Like, did we hear that correctly? How's that possible that somebody can experience that in captivity, in the tunnels underneath Gaza, in the depths of the darkness? How can someone experience that? Doesn't make any sense, right? Omer Shem Tov, talking about his experience, has had an incredible impact on Israelis. Okay, I'm going to read a couple more and then kind of bring them all together. Right? There's a few other quotes from other hostages, former hostages. Elia Cohen says, every morning I would stand in the corner of the room and imagine putting on tefillin. Imagine, I would go through the whole process step by step in my head. This guy's in like a tunnel underneath Gaza, being starving, is that a word? Right? Being starved,
Starved.
being starved, beaten, oppressed, and he's thinking about and visualizing putting on tefillin every single day. Right? Other quotes, Eli Sharabi says, all week we put aside a piece of our daily pizza for Shabbat. On Friday night, I recited Eshet Chayil, thinking of my wife, right, and my family. I made Kiddush over water and blessed Hamotzi on the pita. They're keeping Shabbat the best that they could in captivity. Like, what's going on, right? What is going on? Segev Kalfon, he says, on Shabbat we made Friday night Kiddush together and shook the tunnels with Shabbat melodies. Rom Blaslavsky said, the only thing that gave me strength was knowing that everything done to me was simply because I'm a Jew. It made me realize that we are truly different. We must return to being a united people, to keeping mitzvot, to understanding what it means to be Jewish. Wow. We'll just end with one more, but know that there are more than these. Agam Berger, keeping whatever mitzvot I could keep kept me free. I learned as my ancestors did that our faith and covenant with God are more powerful than any captor. Even as Hamas tried to coerce me into converting to Islam, at times forcing a hijab on my head, they couldn't take my soul. These are quotes that are literally on the level of the biblical. right? And how did this impact society? And it still is. There's been somewhat of like a spiritual renaissance, you can say, in Israel. And I don't want, it's not like religious, not religious. It's Jewish. It's Jewish. More people today are proud to be Jewish and more strongly connected to their Jewish identity in Israel than before October 7th. Why? Because of everything that's happened, but specifically because of the hostages. Specifically because of the hostages. And what they experienced and what they've spoken about since their release. It's blown people's minds. And it's had a huge, huge impact. I heard just a couple months ago on a popular Israeli news show, non-religious guy, non-religious show, he's saying there's a trend. There's a trend among secular Israelis, tens and tens and tens of thousands of secular Israeli youth are starting to keep Shabbat. And you know why? He said, because of the hostages, because of the stories of the hostages. Unbelievable. And this isn't about like, oh, we need to become more religious or, become religious or I'm not religious and it's nothing. Get all that. That's the old model. That's like pre-October 7th model. This is a whole different thing. We're living in a different time. We're living in a different chapter of our history. The old models don't work anymore, and we're in a new model. And I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying it's like paradise. I'm not saying it's Gan Eden. I'm still aware of reality, but we cannot ignore. We cannot hide our faces from the transformations that have happened since October 7th and are still happening. And in the ways in which Israeli society and Jews around the world, Jewish society around the world has changed. We'll never be the same. We'll never be the same. And we should never be the same. Right? October 7th changed all of us. All of us in this Zoom right now, right? All of us, no matter where we live, in Israel, outside of Israel, doesn't matter. It changed all of us, and it will forever change us, right? We will never be the same people. Am Yisrael, the Jewish people, are no longer the same people, right? But I think a similarity that we can say about post-October 7th and pre-October 7th is this is yet another example in Jewish history, right, where the Jewish people have faced unbelievable depths of darkness and have once again succeeded in transforming that darkness into light. Not that we didn't get or experience, I should say, something really, really intense and deadly and horrible on October 7th. But since then we have to ask ourselves, what do we do now? What do we do now? How do we act? How do we react? How do we respond? We have responded with such incredible strength, resilience, bravery, courage, passion, commitment. Like again, I keep saying, but it's like the only thing I can compare it to on the level of the biblical. This I said this, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who said this. I'm sure other people felt this as well in the months after October 7th. There's going to need to be a new book of the Hebrew Bible written about this time. Without a doubt. The number of stories that have come out, what's happening in our people, without a doubt. We are living in unprecedented times. And so, yes, there was a lot of darkness on October 7th and darkness after, right? In the struggle, in the war. People being killed, soldiers dying. A lot of pain, a lot of funerals, a lot of funerals. And my wife and I have gone to more funerals since October 7th than we have in the 22 years that we've lived in Israel. I'm sure that's been everyone's experience here. But there is unbelievable. This is everything. When I said at the beginning, like feeling everything, feeling all the emotions, feeling all the feelings, we're feeling it all at the same time, all simultaneously. So it's intense, it's hard, it's not easy, and it's also, and I think it's okay to say this, and that we should say it. It's also an incredible time to be alive as a Jew. It's an incredible time to be a Jew right now. We are witnessing unbelievable things, right? And we are taking part. We're not just witnessing. We're not passive observers, right? We are actively part of this. And I'll just maybe end, and like, how do you end something like this? I'm not really sure. But just to go back maybe to what I said at the beginning is the volunteer spirit. This could be like a whole other class. I'm just going to mention it so briefly. But not only was Israeli society broken before October 7th, deeply divided, also the whole Israel diaspora thing was like way off. was way off, sorry, was way off for years before October 7th, right? People were wondering, sorry, I'm in my parents' house in the same language where that is, okay? I'm not sure if you can hear that, you probably could, okay? There was incredible divides between Israel and the diaspora. And people were asking similar questions. Are we ever going to be able to heal it? Are Jews in the diaspora going to be able to support Israel the way that they did in the past? Right? Is this a new chapter in Israel diaspora relations? What's going to be? How are we going to heal? All those similar kind of questions. Then October 7th, and just like, forget all that. We are with you. We are one. We are one nation. We're all together. Right? And again, um, the volunteerism that grew out of that, right? Once people were able to come into Israel, once Jews were able to come visit, every trip was about volunteering. There was no such thing as like coming to Israel and not volunteering. Like that's why you came, right? Birthright chips turned into like volunteer chips. Missions turned into volunteer chips, and this is the transformation that we're seeing, right? This is the transformation that we're seeing. We're different people. It's a different chapter. These are different times, and I believe that we're all very blessed with all the hardships, not forgetting any of them, obviously, but we're also all blessed to be alive and to take part in this unprecedented chapter. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting me to share. I see there's some questions that popped up in the chat. We can
Thank
take
you
some
so much,
questions.
Akiva. I think you called out the stories that some of us have heard. We haven't heard all of them, but it was definitely felt here, and this great feeling of like, what are we supposed to do now? And I know that one thing I thought was finally people are going to realize what Hamas has been doing to us and how evil this terrorism is. And as American Jews and Jews all over Europe, now we see that's not what happened. It's the opposite. So we're dealing with it from that end too, but I do think it definitely strengthened everyone's connection. So do you want to take a look? Pam,
Yeah.
would you mind if Akiva, unless you want to read them?
I can see them. So let me see. Da-da-da-da.
Can I
Did
ask
you
you a
hear
question?
much about? I'm sorry.
We're
Someone
gonna
said something?
we're gonna go through we usually go through the questions in the chat and then we open it up to the group, if that's okay.
It's totally okay. I just kind of computer challenged, so
Okay,
nope.
Brian, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Okay. I just feel I enjoyed your talk, but I feel like you're preaching to the choir here. Wouldn't you, wouldn't the words that you have spoken now have a lot more effect if you visited universities in the States?
You broke up at the end. I heard one of your words have more of an effect if what?
If you traveled worldwide and talked to the Jewish youth in universities and community centers in Holland and in California and wherever else, everyone here on this chat, we agree with you. As I said, I believe you're preaching to the choir here. So I'm just wondering if you could have more of a
Well, I just
benefit.
want to correct one thing. I'm not preaching here. I'm just
Well,
sharing.
sorry,
I'm teaching, not preaching.
that's
And
that's just.
not everyone on this call knows everything that Akiva said, and
But
that's one of
not.
the reasons we gather.
First of all, that was just a phrase, so I apologize. But I appreciate your words for sure. And you're right, nothing will ever be the same since October 7th. I feel like we're using, as much as we're gaining a lot more the Zionistic field, we've also lost a lot too. We've lost a lot of young Jews and middle-aged Jews, and it distresses me.
I
That's
hear
it.
that. That's a whole topic in and of itself. I'll say super briefly, and this is not the end all be all of what I could say, is I think those Jews were already lost.
Mm.
I'll be honest with you. We're not going to get all of them. In our history, we've never retained everyone in our people, and it's a hard thing to hear, but it's true. Starting with, in the weekly Torah portion, we're now in Egypt, right, and slavery is happening, and we learned that only 20% of the Jews left Egypt. That's been a thing. I hope it's way more than 20% today, but I don't think our goal is to get everyone. There are tons of Jews who are so disconnected and so anti and so lost. Look, of course, ideally, I think we would agree that we would like to get all of them, on board and connected and proud Jews. Of course, we would want that. But I don't think it's realistic to think that we will. And I don't think October 7th sent anyone far away. I think they already were on their way out, if not already out.
Okay, good point. To the
For sure. And look, believe me, I would love to do what you said, to go travel to all these places and share a class like this. Um, Not everyone's looking for that, especially the people who maybe really need to hear it.
In
But
Canada,
I do hear your point. It's a good point what you're saying. I do hear you.
Okay, let's go to the typed questions.
thanks, Lana.
Sure.
Um, I'm just looking through them right now.
Robin.
It looks
If you
like
see
Robin.
one, Ilana, that you want to bring up,
Yeah,
please
sure.
feel free.
I'm gonna have to leave to pay a Shiva call, but Pam's got this. But Robin's looks like the first. Did you hear much about volunteering in Israel before October 7th?
Hmm.
Nothing compared to what's taken place since. There's always volunteer, here and there, and volunteer programs, volunteer organizations for sure, but this is on a whole nother level, like unprecedented, unprecedented. And also, again, within Israel, right? The amount that Israelis have gotten involved, obviously was way more in the first few months of the wars, in the first 6 months to a year. But that's also, it's kind of dual faceted in that sense, unprecedented.
Lovette said, I feel like this was our 9/11, united by sorrow. Um,
Unfortunately. That's also
Robin,
a biblical theme. It's usually the sorrowful things that unite us. Unfortunately, we have to learn to
fortunately.
be united through joy and by joyous things. That's our challenge.
I think maybe Robin missed something you said, but she said, are you in the reserves now? How much time do you have to go to reserves each year?
He's not, Robin. He's not.
No.
Right.
I have nieces and nephews and friends who have been, and they've literally hundreds and hundreds of days have been in the reservists since October 7th.
Robin then asks, what do you think will happen with the one hostage body that has not been returned? If the remains cannot be located, what will bring closure? I still wear my dog tag with bring them home now.
So look, I actually just made a post on my Facebook. I'm in New York now, and I just flew yesterday, and I was in the airport in Ben Gurion yesterday, and I'm coming down that path, after you go through the whole, security and to the whole waiting area. And I remember I've flown many times since October 7th, and that whole row was packed, was lined, I should say, with pictures and posters of the hostages and all kinds of personal things written and shared on them. And it was really powerful, right? To walk there, and there's no posters most of the way until you get towards the very end, and you see, the one poster of Ranu Gavil. And obviously, like, our hearts break for him. Obviously, like, we're all praying and hoping that his body will be returned. But at the same time, like, it was so powerful to see, like, whoa, what a transformation, what a difference. So what do I think? Israel has said and kept to it that we're not going to go to a future stage of the ceasefire until every hostage is returned alive or dead, and we're waiting for his return. And we haven't moved forward in this ceasefire deal. So if the remains cannot be located, I don't know. I really don't know. Obviously, I'm not in the military or political establishment, so I don't know very much. I know as much as you guys, but Israel's sticking to its word and saying we're not going to move forward. So
To the person who said, please send us the recording, you'll be able to get this on YouTube as soon as Steve uploads it. I'm not sure when that is, but just keep going to YouTube and look up Volunteers for Israel, and it should be on there in the next few days. Um, is this
The next question is Harry's. Robin has a comment, but the next question
okay?
is Harry's.
Go ahead. You take over, Pam.
All right, you're leaving? Okay.
I have to leave in a minute. So you
Okay.
take over now.
All right, Harry asks, do you think the divisions will resurface or resolve in a more civil manner? With Israel normalizing with more Arab countries, do you, oh, I'm missing
do you see
something.
any true and lasting peace with
See
God in
any?
the whole
Yeah,
Middle East?
right.
How is Israel dealing with all the physical and mental aspects long term? So that's a lot. There's a lot. There's a bunch of questions in that question. Again, that's a whole nother class.
That's Harry. That's
Yeah,
Harry.
no, I appreciate it, Harry. Thank you. A lot of good points there. I'll just really like 1 second kind of responses. Um, the first question is such a hard one. Do I think the divisions will resurface? I'll be honest with you. As much as I said, and I believe so deeply that Israeli society has been changed and transformed as a result of October 7th, and we're not going to become, please God, what we were or how we were before. There are always going to be people who thrive and seek to create division. That's just, the nature of humanity, and the Jewish people are not exempt from that. So we're already seeing it. We're already seeing it. Elections are coming up in about, I don't know, 9 months or so in Israel, and you're starting to already see those kind of divisions resurface. Please God, they are not going to be anything close to before October 7th. And please God, in my humble opinion, those who do strive to try to bring that back will be defeated, right? And Israeli society as a whole will be basically like, no, like that's not what we're going to do. I can feel it, I can see it, I can sense it, right? There is something there. And I just really, really hope that it doesn't grow, because it is literally it's our downfall. It's our downfall. It's what brings our enemy upon us, and I really hope we don't go back to that. Again, that's just a brief response to that. I Look, we're not a political program here, right? I don't come here to talk about politics. So I'm just gonna make one statement, and then we're not going to talk about it. But it's just my own personal belief, and I think this is the majority of Israelis today. No matter what, if you were left, center, or right before October 7th, let me just maybe say this, okay? As a thing, I don't believe that there's gonna be lasting peace with Gaza. I don't, okay? Because the other side needs to want peace as well. I'll just illustrate that by a personal experience I had shortly after October 7th. It was one of the first times I went down to the Gaza area. After October 7th, I went to visit Sderot, and I used to bring groups there a lot to this one hill that looks right into Gaza, and I would give a whole hour-long lesson about Gaza sitting on this hill with my students. And so I went there. I was with someone who was visiting from the States, and there was one Israeli woman there, and she heard that we're talking English, so she started talking to us in English as well. And she basically told us something that I was not expecting her to share. She's got tattoos everywhere, kind of look, your typical left-wing Israeli, right? She said, I gave those people money. I let them into my house. I drove them to the hospital. I volunteered for them. I gave them clothing. We let them into our community. And this is what they did to us. Now we realize all that we did for them. They were gaining intelligence, gaining information for Hamas to attack us on October 7th. She was irate. She was done. She was done with any prospects for peace. She basically dedicated decades of her life living on the Gaza border, right, to the belief that there can and one day will be peace between the two sides. She said, I'm done with that. It's not going to happen, right? October 7th showed us that. I think that is the majority of the belief today in Israel. I know it's an intense thing I just shared. I'm sorry if that was a little bit whatever, but I think a lot of people have, kind of come to realize that that was the reality. That is the reality. And what will be in the future, I don't know. I mean, if there's not a lasting peace, so then what world will be? I don't know. But I don't think there's going to be lasting peace, because I don't think that's what the majority of the people on the other side really want. Again, I know that's already getting way too close to political, so I'll just stop there. And how is Israel dealing with all the physical and mental aspects long term? Such a good question, and such an important topic. Again, that's a whole nother topic of discussion. But a lot of NGOs, right, a lot of non-governmental organizations and just initiatives have popped up since October 7th. That's another thing. I didn't even touch on that. That's an important piece. The number of people that have gone into mode and created organizations and initiatives all about helping and healing those directly affected by October 7th and the war, whether they're evacuated families, whether they're soldiers, and there are tons of them who have been physically and emotionally traumatized by what they experienced on October 7th and after. That's a whole nother piece. So there's a lot of healing that needs to happen in this country, both physically, both mentally. It's happening. There are a lot of people doing amazing things, but there's so many people that need help that it is a continuous process, and it's going to take a lot of time. I personally, kind of helped out a little ways here and there, with some events and some initiatives helping, with the healing aspect of specifically soldiers, also Nova survivors, right? And 5,000 people were there at the festival. Over 300 were killed, which means everyone else went through an incredibly traumatizing experience, right? And we know that some of those people have taken their lives since, right? It is not, there's a lot of healing that still needs to take place. And at the same time, there's a lot of people doing incredible things. I know some of them personally, physical, mental, therapeutic services that they're giving, of course, for free to those who need it. It's going to take time. It's going to take time for that to heal. So.
Barbara asked what the name of the book is. Ilana put the link to the book. Okay, so you'll see it one day in
One day
October.
October, yeah.
Okay.
Amazing book.
You'll see that.
One of those you have to read. If you're alive today in this generation, you have to read that book. It's just really incredible.
Okay, then there's just more comments that people made. And everything else are just comments. Does anybody else have any questions? Specific questions for Akiva? Arlene? No. Who? Somebody? Zoom user? Are you raising your hand?
You know what, Pamela? It's Arlene. Akiva, I'm very taken with what you've had to say. And I'd love to see that message brought to more Jews, maybe speaking in synagogues, maybe speaking at Chabad events or Hillel events in colleges.
Yeah,
Have you thought about
that's
that? Because I
that's
think it's important that these kids get, um,
that's what Brian said before.
yeah, but I'm saying that go around to the college
Mhm.
campuses and go around to the synagogues. Um, there's something called a Torah group that's a Christian Torah group. They're very supportive of Israel. That would be a wonderful group to bring this message to.
I'm
Look, I
sure if
appreciate it.
I'm sure if someone wants to sponsor Akiva, he'll be happy to go around the world and speak anywhere, right, Akiva?
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Look, it's important work and it's holy work, and I appreciate what you and Brian, right, are sharing. I really do appreciate that. Look, I believe deeply in this, and I believe passionately in this topic and what's going on in this transformation that we're seeing, and I do agree with you. Maybe this is why, for me personally, this Zoom had to happen so I can like hear you guys give me that message, so I can, be inspired to go and do that. Years ago, I used to do like once every year, once every 2 years, like a speaking tour on various topics related to Judaism in Israel. I haven't done that in many years. I've been more on Zoom the last 5 years than in person. But maybe you guys are inspiring me to go and do that. So I really, really appreciate that. That's something I'm taking from our meeting today. And look, if you guys are connected to synagogues, organizations, have kids in college, just know of anything, feel free to reach out to me. It could also be a Zoom talk like we're doing right now. It could be both in person. It could be over Zoom. I just put my email address in the chat, akivagersh@yahoo.com. I'm also very easily findable on online. If you just Google my name, Akiva Gersh, you'll find a way to get in touch with me. But yeah, I appreciate that, and I invite any connections that you might want to share with me to my email, and to spread this, this very important message. So it would be an honor for me. So again, thank you for sharing that.
The person who's listed as Zoom user. Do you have
Hi,
your
I'm
hand?
I'm sorry I'm listed as Zoom user.
That's
My
okay.
name is Beth Slavitt, and I never can seem to figure that out on my iPad.
Okay,
So
go
I
on.
have the same problem when I join Minion. I guess I had thought, and maybe was mistaken, that this was going to be more information about the volunteer program.
You can ask questions later after Akiva. This was a
Okay,
special
okay.
topic. So
Okay,
after
then
we're
I
finished,
will just
you
say
can
I
ask
really
questions.
appreciate what you said about maybe we've already lost them. Um, I have a sister, went to Hebrew Teachers College, went to Israel, and she and her kids are like pro-Palestinian. That Israel was terrible. Israel was responsible
Yeah.
for all of this. And my older sister says well, I don't talk to my younger sister anyway, but that she just can't talk to her about this. It's just horrible. And
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
Look, yeah, it's another great and important and big topic worthy of a whole nother discussion. And I really don't want to end off on a negative note. So
I
hopefully we'll
understand.
find a way to end this on a positive note. But I'll just say, as an educator, I've had thousands and thousands of students over the years, and many people reach out to me. Sorry about this thing beeping here in the background.
It's not
Many
beeping. We
people.
can't hear it.
Oh, you can't hear it. Good. Many people reach out to me right after October 7th, old friends, old students, all kinds of people, like just to like say, "Oh my God, Akiva, how are you? How's your family? I'm so sorry." And I also had former students reach out to me in the months after October 7th, because I went, online, and even more so like pro-Israel, sharing about Israel, sharing all these different things. I had students, former students of mine, who sat in my classroom, who I taught, who I had good connections with, right? Who went to like Jewish day schools in America, who said the most disgusting things to me, either in comments on Facebook or private messages that they sent to me, calling me a racist, calling me a this, calling me a that, saying you genocide, you killer, you all baby, the whole thing. Students of mine who said this, Jews, young Jews. I was like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain that. I don't know how to explain that, right? And most of the time the dialogue happened until like I just couldn't anymore. And I just blocked him and I'm like, you guys are so far gone. I don't know how you got there, but wow. Wow. And that is, it's sad. It's heartbreaking. It's hard for us to hear and to recognize, but we have to focus our energies. We have a certain amount of energy, right? And we need to focus our energy on what we can do, right? And there's so much that we can do. And there's so many people that we can reach out to, and there's so many people that we can help. Right? Instead of me like spending all this time like getting, digging a hole of a conversation with this kid who's like so, influenced by the anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian establishment, let me focus my energy, elsewhere where I can have a more of an impact, more of a positive impact, and a lasting impact. Of course we want to like, help everybody, right? But, it is a reality, and we do what we can do, and I think we should be inspired by those who and this is the positive thing we'll end off on. How many Jews around the world, right? Their hearts have opened up to their Jewish identity, since October 7th and because of October 7th. I can't tell you how many Jews I've talked to about that since October 7th. I've sat down with people who said, I barely knew I was Jewish until October 7th. I'm now checking out Judaism for the first time in my life because of October 7th. I've talked to countless number of people who share with me that. Right. So, so many things happen as a result of October 7th. Yes, there was that negative side, those people who were already on their way out and now they're really out. Okay. Batzlacha, as we say in Hebrew, like good luck. Good luck
Thank
out
you.
there.
Thank you.
But let's not forget all the people who are even closer, even more passionate, even more in love with Israel, with the Jewish people, with being Jewish as a result.
I'd like to say something. First of all, Maurice Robin is trying to get back on Zoom, so if you could let her on. She said she can't get back in. Second of all, Akiva was talking about the reservists, his friends that are doing reserve duty, and how they say it's a whole different world when they're in reserve duty and they love it. Most of you know, and also the fact that the war is still going on. That's the most important thing. Most people abroad, in the United States and different countries, I have found think that the war is over. Okay, you guys hear on your news in the States or wherever you're living in Europe or Canada or wherever, you hear that the war is over because we have a ceasefire, so the war is over. Those of us who live here know that the war is not over. Though Akiva knows because all his friends are still on reserve duty and probably relatives of his and everybody, everybody's families have kids that are kids, fathers, uncles, brothers, everybody who's still doing all of the army service. Most of you know that I have a Hamal in Tel Aviv. A Hamal is it's really a war room. This is a distribution center where we send out things to soldiers every single day. And I just can't even tell you how busy we are right now, even though the war is supposedly over and there's a nice ceasefire. Every single front, from Gaza to the West Bank to Syria to Lebanon, everywhere. And because it's winter here, not winter like you guys are having, but winter for Israel, it's freezing cold, and we cannot keep the clothing, the warm clothing, and all the supplies and the equipment in stock enough. So the war is still going on, and anybody who tells you that it's not, just change the channel of that TV station and watch Israeli news instead of whatever you're watching, because the war is strong, it's still going on. Anybody else have questions?
Could I just say that you just blew me away? And this is not the first time I've heard it talk about Israel. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being here. And thank you for caring.
Oh, thank you for being there and making sure there's an Israel when I will need it.
Man, hope to see you here soon.
June.
Soon in June.
Okay, if nobody has any other questions, then
Thank
we
you.
will let Akiva go to sleep or
No, remember I'm in New York right now. So
oh, you're in New York. I'm the
yeah,
only
yeah,
one. Oh, so I'm the only
this
one in Israel right now.
yeah, I'm visiting right now. I just came here yesterday. And
Okay. Oh,
I
that's
can't, yeah, yeah. There's always more to say. Maybe another time. But yeah, I'm here for the week, and I hope to not get stuck because of any breakout of
oh,
anything. You know,
you're in the city with Mamdani? Oh, good luck.
I'm outside the city. My parents' house outside the city. I'm going into the city on Sunday, so that's gonna be. We'll see what happens. Hopefully, all good.
Okay, good
So
luck.
Yeah, make
anyway,
sure you
thank you,
take your
everybody.
passport.
Really
Thanks,
appreciate the
Akiva.
invitation. I'm sorry.
No, I said thank you. Someone else said something.
Oh, and I was
I, I, I,
okay.
w- I
So
was saying, make sure you take your passport.
exactly. I'll put it on my neck.
All right.
I just
Thank
wanted
you,
to,
everybody. Really always great to be here, especially this time. There's something even more powerful about this time. I really appreciate that. So thank you so much.
you're
Thank
welcome.
you,
All
Akiva.
the
Thank
best.
you, Vicky.